Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Mr. Michael Hall and Michael Reed. The Burgundy Zone is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. But we are rejoined, I would say, by Mr. Ryan Roberts of Rise and Draft. You have been climbing up the board, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing on this Friday?
I appreciate the compliment, man. I'm just doing what I can, but I thank you guys again. I know it's been a little hectic to try to get on here and everything, but I'm excited to be back on, man, as a return guest for sure.
And saying doing what you can was a fantastic transition into my next question, because the Washington Commanders, they traded for Carson Wentz from the Indianapolis Colts, 2 third-round picks. They swapped second-rounders. Only 5 move spots have been moved for Washington. What did you think of the trade for Washington? Do you think it's a good fit?
Oh, man, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, I live right outside of Philadelphia, but I'm not an Eagles fan, so I was very impartial during the Carson Wentz era, and I felt like I was
You're a hero.
I was a Carson Wentz apologist for a couple of years, to be honest, man, because it got rough there at the end, obviously, and all Eagles fans kind of turned on him, and I was like, oh, no, he's still talented, and I think I don't know, I think that Carson left the Philadelphia Eagles is a little bit of a broken man, to be honest. Like, he just seems like his confidence has been kind of fractured, because he's a very talented player. There's no doubt about that, right? And I think that you saw it at points during the Colts tenure, during his 1 year. I think he threw like 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Like, he did not have a bad
He threw
season.
like 7 interceptions every year of his career, except for 2020. Right. If you look at it, it's so weird.
Bizarre. Yeah. It's bizarre, man. That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, the 33-7 was like that almost MVP season. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But yeah, it felt like he fell apart at the worst possible moment for the Colts, right? And I've been very curious about what Washington was going to do at the quarterback position. And then when I saw, obviously, Aaron Rodgers gets re-signed and Russell Wilson gets traded, I'm like, okay, is Deshaun Watson in the play? I don't know what that conversation is. And then it ends up being Carson Wentz. And I'm very in between on it, because, if Carson Wentz is at his peak, then the 2 third rounders, one that could turn to a second, it's a heist, to be honest. But we've just seen too much of bad Carson. I think it's almost similar to like a Jameis Winston kind of thing, right? Where it's like the highs of Jameis were really good, but like the lows were about as low as you could possibly find. So it's just finding that in middle ground with Carson's the big thing. But I hope for the best for him, because like I said, I did really like him for a couple years there, which is why I was an apologist. So I'll hope for the best. It's a strange fit, man, getting back in the NFC East, but we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, it's definitely weird cheering for Carson Wentz after years of him destroying us. He always seemed to destroy us and me hating him and me making every excuse possible for why he wasn't a good quarterback. And now I'm on the opposite side of that. So, it is what it is. But so as you know, in order for Carson Wentz to succeed, Washington really has to surround him with talent. You got to do more than just Terry McLaurin. A lot of Washington fans are looking at wide receiver early on in the draft. Who are some of your top wide receivers, and who do you think is the best fit in Washington?
Yeah, I think that Washington's going to be in a pretty decent spot, to be honest, because I think there's going to be a run on defensive ends and offensive tackles early. And then if there's a quarterback to, let's say, Carolina in there, and maybe Seattle takes a quarterback, I think they honestly could be in a spot where they just pick whoever they want, right? They could be in this position where they're drafting the first wide receiver off the board. My top guy is Garrett Wilson. I've loved him for a long time out of Ohio State, man. He's the one wide receiver that I would call a multi-level threat that can win in every single way. Like, I've seen him win in the air. I've seen him separate with speed. He ran 4.38 at the combine. I've seen him separate just with his great route running. And his hands are phenomenal. He's got huge hands, and I think the upside is just fantastic with him. But you could also go the style of a Treylon Burks, who's a little more of a, bigger type of yak wide receiver, right? He can play some inside and out. I think he compares a lot more favorably. I've heard like the comparisons to AJ Brown and stuff like that. I think he reminds me a little more of Demaryius Thomas, to be honest, that would play with Denver and got that big body frame. Does a little more after the catch than you would anticipate, but I think he runs a lot faster than the 4.55 that he ran at the combine would indicate. Jamison Williams would be another guy that, if we're trying to influx speed, because I know Terry obviously has a lot of speed there. If you want to just continue to add speed to that team, could be a guy that, I mean, if he was not hurt, if he was able to test, I think that he would be the first wide receiver off the board because teams just kind of really push for that speed near the top of the draft. But for Washington specifically, I think they're in an interesting spot because I would like to say like Garrett Wilson's the top guy, but I would in effect maybe like to also get some size to that wide receiver room, right?
Like a Drake London, maybe.
Drake London was the guy I was thinking about, man, because I mean I'm a big fan of Drake London. I actually have him as my second ranked wide receiver, even above Treylon Burks. So if you want to go big body who has yak ability, that could be the dude, or I would say Garrett Wilson. One of those two I think is a home run fit potentially. I think stylistically speaking, Drake probably meshes a little better with Terry, but I think Garrett Wilson is the best receiver in the draft.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And sticking with the draft and the 11th pick, hopefully they go offense, but say for whatever reason they decide to go defense and maybe a guy like Ahmad or Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley seems to drop. What are your view on them, and do you see them being a viable option at 11?
Yeah, as long as you don't draft any linebackers this year in the first round. I think it's a great cornerback class. Outside of the edge group, I think it's probably the deepest group in the class to be deepest group in the draft, to be honest. And you mentioned Ahmad. Hey man, if you want to play a bunch of press man and you want to activate his length, and I mean he still ran pretty fast 40 for his size as well. So he's had the most consistent film over the last couple of years. The guy that you just kind of what you're gonna get, and he brings a lot of swagger to the table too, which you need at cornerback. So I really did. He impressed me more than I thought he would because at first I was like, I just don't know what type of athlete he is, And then he shows at the combine, and you're just kind of like, okay, he's a better athlete than maybe give him credit for because he just plays such a physical brand of football. So I think he's worthy of that selection. Derek Stingley, talent-wise, is a top 10 player in this class, right? It's just greatest ability is availability, and he just hasn't been available. I mean, if you get him and he remedies some of the durability concerns, he could be maybe the best defender in this class, but it's just hard for me to bet on personally where we are right now. I think he's gonna feel a little bit of a drop. So I think that Ahmad's probably ends up being the first quarterback off the board. My top guy is actually Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson, though. I love Andrew Booth, man. I think that he has the best combination when you put everything into the vacuum, right? Like size, 6 foot plus, 32-inch arms. He has, he didn't test at the combine because I think he pulled a hamstring before the workout or whatever. So, I mean, but he's a legit 4.3, 4.4 type of athlete, and he's the best corner I've ever seen being able to play the football in the air and be able to adjust in the air, just some silly stuff. He's got wide receiver ball skills. So I would not be upset if they drafted Andrew Booth Jr. at that spot, but I think that Ahmad is a very safe selection at the 11th because he definitely does profile to be a cornerback one at the next level for sure.
Yeah, and at the last draft, Washington traded away their 5th-round pick in order to move up to take Cameron Cheeseman, the long snapper. And then with this trade with Carson Wentz, that means they don't have a 3rd-rounder either. So they have 3 picks between round 2 and round 6. Ryan, what are some prospects in that draft order that could be there projected for Washington in those rounds that you think that could contribute?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the positions that we talked about, like I think there's a lot. Again, this cornerback class is incredibly deep, and I think that there's guys. I mean, specifically, if you're trying to find long, athletic dudes at cornerback, there's a lot of guys in this class that I think are really interesting. I think a guy, Joshua Williams, is a dude that I keep talking about from Fayetteville State that was at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he's a legit 6'2.5", 4'5" flat type of athlete, track background. Very athletic coming out of Fayetteville. And obviously he's a Division II player, so he's going to probably take a little bit of acclimatization, right? Like he's not going to be a guy that's just going to hit the ground running. I think it'd start from day one, but I think you're getting a long-term starter. And there's a couple really like scrappy dudes. I mean, like if you want to stick with size, like Zion McCullum from Sam Houston State just ran 4.33 at the combine. He's also 6'2" and 1/8. So he's got that size, that length, and that athleticism for sure. And there's a couple scrappy dudes that I think could kind of be between the corner and safety type of mold, like Alonta Taylor from Tennessee, who's a really, really physical player. Cam Taylor Britt from Nebraska is a really interesting guy as well because I think they play a lot bigger than they actually are. And I think that they're in a press man system, physical system. I think that they could last it outside, but I also think they could do some stuff in the nickel. And they maybe even, I mean, I think Alonta Taylor especially, I think he could be a really good safety down the line if that's where his ultimate best spot is. And I know we talked obviously about wide receiver. So a couple guys that I really like. Well, actually, I'll just stick to one guy that I really like because I'm gonna have some New Jersey bias, I guess, for a second, but Bo Melton from Rutgers is my guy, man. He did really well at the Senior Bowl. I last summer I was like, this kid's a 4.3 athlete, and I feel like people really listened to me. And then he went to the combine, ran 4.34. I'm like, I told you, man. I told you, he's a 4.3 athlete. He is. And he's a guy that just does everything so well. He's just a really smooth, crafty route runner, has that 4.3 speed, and he's a guy that at Rutgers, they would just manipulate space and let him kind of do stuff as like a yak player a ton. So I think that he can work a little bit inside and out. He could just bring an added element for, the game is just becoming so much more, let's create space and let's maximize it. And he's a guy that has shown the ability at Rutgers to take advantage of manufactured space.
Right. Yeah. And really, just like the last 2 years, this is a very deep wide receiver class. You can get a lot of good receivers later on in the draft as well. But so another position of concern, or at least it may come up for Washington, J.D. McKissick could demand a lot of money and be on the move in free agency. Are there any mid to late or undrafted free agent backs who you think can be good third down backs in the NFL?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of them in this class, to be honest. It's funny because like the first guy that came to my mind is like a similar body type to him would be Jerion Eatley out of Mississippi. He's 5'8" and some change, 189 pounds. He was a former two-sport star. He actually played baseball at Ole Miss as well, and a lot of people thought that coming out of high school he would end up as a baseball player. So he's got some dynamic traits to him. Really shifty. He has one of the best dead legs in the draft. He makes guys look really dumb on the second level in space. So he's a guy that I think if you manufacture that space well, he can do a lot of things for you. Ronnie Rivers from Fresno State's like a real late round guy, maybe UDFA. That is interesting because he's only like 5'7" and some change, 195 pounds. So he's a small package, but like one of the better players in this class as far as consistency as a runner. He doesn't fumble the ball much, and he's a really good pass blocker, and he catches the ball well. It just kind of hits every attribute. I wouldn't say he's a standout in any spot, but like he just finds ways to contribute in the passing game. And then, honestly, might be a beneficiary of bad combine. Kyron Williams from Notre Dame might be a guy that's in there in day 3 now, maybe 4th round. It's potentially 4th, 5th round because he ran 4.65 at 194 pounds. Obviously, not the long speed that you would want for that position, but he is a really shifty, athletic kid. Athletic from a measurable perspective, right? Like he's not a tester, but on the film, I wouldn't say that he's lacks in explosiveness or, it's just, it shows up on film, and he's got the explosion, which is a little surprising more to me that he didn't have like a good vertical and a good broad jump. Like I thought he was explosive on film, but he is a tough, determined runner. And I'll tell you, man, covering him closely, he brings juice to that team, the Notre Dame team over the last couple of years that like is unquantifiable. He is just a leader on that team, and he brings just so much to him. Best pass blocker in the draft. He spent more time at wide receiver in high school than he did at running back, and I think that shows up on film because he just has really solid hands as well. So you might Washington or any other team that considers Kyron, I think is going to get a tremendous value because I think he's better than a 4th round player. But unfortunately, teams are going to knock that athletic profile because usually 194 pounds running 4.65 is not successful at the next level.
Right.
No. So sticking with players that Washington is Washington is moving on from, Landon Collins, and they're probably going to need to looking to replace him in the draft. Who are some of these safeties, the top safeties or these mid-round safeties between rounds 2 to 4 maybe that Washington might be looking at or maybe targeting?
Yeah, one guy kind of in the backyard a little bit is Nick Cross from Maryland, which I think would make a lot of sense for the team.
We just met with him.
Did you? Nice. Yeah,
well, not us, but Washington. My bad.
Oh, Washington. Yeah. By association, you guys met with him.
Yeah, me and him are best friends, but yeah.
Man, he spent time with the Maryland track team, obviously, during his career, ran 4.34 at 212 pounds, really athletic kid. I actually didn't catch his tape until probably a week or 2 before the combine. And I was just really impressed with the range that he shows in the back end. I don't think he's the tackler that Landon Collins is, right? But he's a guy that I think brings a lot of coverage versatility to you. And I think that he's 3rd, 4th round, probably somewhere in that ballpark. Because I think that some people are going to say that the measurables are maybe better than the tape right now, which is fair because the measurables were just stupid, right? Like it wasn't like a good showing. It was a phenomenal showing. Right. So he's an interesting player. I think if you want a similar mold to a guy like a Landon Collins, and Brian Cook from Cincinnati would probably be that guy because he's right around 6'1.5", 206 pounds, so a little smaller than Landon, but like he's one of the better tacklers in the class as far as safeties go. And I think that he brings a nice, strong safety profile. And then maybe like one of the more impressive players as far as like the tenacity he plays with. Jalen Petrie from Baylor, man, is a fun guy to watch.
He's
like,
fun, yeah.
Yeah, he plays. So they run a 4-2-5, so he's basically their big nickel, right? And he's a guy that, I mean, tackle for loss, sacks, stops at the line of scrimmage, and he's just a tenacious dude. And he's only about 5'10", 200 pounds, and he's a smaller, like he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he just doesn't miss tackles. He's a lot like Antoine Winfield Jr., right? Like when he was coming out of Minnesota, like he just doesn't miss anything. And their question is obviously, what can he do as an impact on the in the third level? And it is a fair judgment because he had only just played like short zone stuff while I was at Baylor.
Okay.
But I thought in the Senior Bowl, he did a nice job playing man-to-man coverage against tight ends and doing a bunch of different varieties. So I think he brings you a really high upside because at worst, he's a really good physical box defender. But there might be more from just a diagnostic perspective and a range perspective than Baylor maybe showed off during this time.
Yeah, and Ryan, with the Carson Wentz trade, a lot of people have been taking Washington out of the quarterback sweepstakes in the draft. But guys like John Keim, respected voices in this area, believe that Washington could very well be in the vicinity for a quarterback in that second round. Who do you like that fits Washington? Because that was a word that was used. They want to draft a rookie quarterback to kind of progress that has a similar skill set to Carson. So who could you see falling to Washington in the second round that would be a good fit?
I mean, not quite the same athletes, but I think another Carson would be a good fit in Carson Strong because I think that Washington. I know Scott Turner is a lot of West Coast concepts in there, but I also do think that he wants to stretch the field a little bit with the Terry McLaurins of the world, right? So Carson Strong has. I mean, Malik Willis probably has the pure arm strength in the class, but Carson Wentz, I almost said Carson Strong. is a close second in my opinion, and I think he really does well in that vertical passing game, and I think that he would be a solid fit. A guy that actually compared to Carson Wentz, so it might be a little bit of a clear projection, is Desmond Ridder. And I'm honestly not the biggest Desmond Ridder fan of all time, but like big guy, strong arm, athletic, can kind of do things off script, and there's inconsistencies from a passing game perspective in structure at times, from an accuracy perspective that like just. I mean, so there's going to be some, and you guys will see it a lot more. I mean, you guys have seen it as Washington fans just in general, but like there are some times where like Carson just hits like a 5-step drop and throws it out, and it's just like airmailed. You're just like, what the heck, dude? Like, it's like basic stuff. And Desmond's going to do that same thing, but then he's going to keep you coming back because he's going to throw this incredible seam ball, and then he's going to, break a tackle in the backfield and run around and deliver a pass. So I think he's a guy that would be a good fit behind Carson because I think that there is some similarities to how they play football. There's a little bit of a feast or famine to how they play. And I think that it could be a solid fit, at least from a stylistic perspective.
Yep, you saved the best for last, Ryan. Thank you so much for that. I forgot to tell you that was the last one, but I appreciate you for coming on here and being able to really give us a lot of info into these prospects because that was a lot to bring in, and I can't wait to re-listen to this to go back and watch film on these guys. Ryan, just in case there's nobody watching, if you want to just plug your social media handles in case somebody wants to follow you.
There's trust, but there's nobody watching.
Yeah, just in case nobody's watching, plug it. If nobody's watching. If people are watching, though, don't think about it.
That nobody that's already following you. I'm sorry, I butchered that. I've been butchering a lot of things today.
I know.
You're good, man. No, it's risendraft.com is the website that you can check out all the draft stuff. RISEN draft, and that's also my Twitter handle, so you can follow everything on there. And I appreciate you guys again for the flexibility and. Hope to be back on after the draft to see if I was good or not in my projections.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get you on here again to show how smart you are, Ryan. I can't thank you enough, brother. Enjoy your weekend, all right?
All right, absolutely, guys. Thank you.
All right, brother.
All right, man. See ya.
All right, everybody. We're just joined by the man Ryan Roberts, and I butchered that last part. And
that was so funny when you were like, I butchered a lot of things today. I was about to be like, somebody go check on Katie.
That's not funny. That's not funny. Katie would beat me.
I was about to say you'd be destroyed. Yeah.
But
somebody check on Kyle.
Dude, we have so many fan questions that were submitted in, and so we got to start with the Colonel first and foremost. He deserves it. So his first question to us, since we are rebranding from the Carolina Panthers to the Philadelphia Eagles, wouldn't it be appropriate for us to obtain Zach Ertz? He says, after all, he has caught more touchdown passes from Carson Wentz than anyone else with 24. What do you think, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The only thing is I'm I don't think tight end is as big of a need as most people do. I get Logan Thomas is coming off of an injury, but I really, really like what I saw from John Bates. Of course, it also depends on if we bring back Ricky Seals-Jones, anything like that. But it's interesting. I just think we have bigger needs right now to focus on, and without that much cap space, I would rather not waste it on Zach Ertz. But hey, if we got to, I wouldn't be upset with it. Zach Ertz, you saw how productive he was in Arizona last year. He's still a very good tight end, and that him and Logan Thomas would be a deadly combo.
Yeah, absolutely. I just the only reason I'm against it, Colonel, of going and signing Zach Ertz is because I believe like the young guy should be able to have a chance, and especially when John Bates was thrown into the limelight and he actually did well. He excelled. He did more than he was expected to. I think that deserves respect, and it definitely deserves the playing time. That being said, obviously he's a different tight end than Zach Ertz is. But the only thing that I'm concerned with is that we would be paying Zach Ertz to come in here and do what John Bates can do, and then Zach Ertz is going to get injured, and John Bates is going to be playing anyway, since Zach Ertz is as old as he is at the moment. And no disrespect to Zach Ertz, he's a very good tight end, and most would say he's obviously better than John Bates at the moment. But speaking future-wise and cap space, I don't think we can mortgage it. I would rather go down the route of trying to get one of these linebackers like Jordan Hicks who just became available. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I would probably be against it. If we had more cap space, then I would definitely look into it, because obviously running 12 personnel or one running back, two tight ends is like essential with Scott Turner's offense as far as what he likes to do as far as working the seams and whatnot. But I just think that with all the reports of how it was in Philly, where there was disgruntled receivers because it kind of seemed like he was only throwing the ball to Zach Ertz, and they're like really good friends or like best friends. And I just don't want to throw off the dynamic of the locker room with already reports of Carson Wentz kind of being like not really that guy in the locker room. I don't know if that's true or not. There's conflicting reports, obviously. But with that being said, like you said, I want to see John Bates develop. And I definitely think that, honestly, Logan Thomas can kind of be his new Zach Ertz, kind of 2.0. Obviously, he's coming off the ACL, but I definitely think that the two tight ends we have, and maybe you re-sign Ricky Seals-Jones on the cheap end, that can kind of be that flexible guy and be like Zach Ertz light. I definitely think that, like I said, they go receiver at 11. I don't want him to be a detriment to the growth of the receivers, because he's always targeting Zach Ertz. I want them to draft a receiver and grow the offense around the weapons that we have now.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we say Zach Ertz is old, we don't mean like for this earth. He's not going to like decay. We mean like as a football player.
Yeah, and like I would rather be the Ravens rather than being like the Patriots in the tight end sense. The Ravens just produce tight ends year after year. They're able to trade them away. Where the Patriots, we saw last year, they went in free agency. They went and signed
Jonnu Smith,
and the dude from Hunter Henry. Yes, you're right. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm drawing blanks today. But the next question, I'm gonna keep this with you, Hall. Despite the fact the Colts were likely to release Wentz, we gave them 2 draft picks. That was tough to swallow. Absorbing his entire $28 million price tag, though, with all the free agents we wanted to re-sign, WTF? Why are we doing this? Is this move desperation?
Yeah, I definitely think it was a desperation move. That's probably honestly the worst part of this whole deal, is they got to eat the whole $28 million for this year. But with that being said, if you really look at this, the pay range of quarterback scale, where obviously Aaron Rodgers is getting $50 million, and then I don't know what the lowest guy is getting paid, but you would say Carson Wentz is probably around the middle of the pack. $28 million is kind of middle of the pack money. As far as the draft picks go, kind of like Ryan just said when we had him on, it's kind of boom or bust. If he ends up being Carson Wentz from last year, or like 2.0 of Carson Wentz, and maybe like 80% of what he was the MVP year, then giving up those two draft picks is honestly a steal. And for the price you're getting for him is also a steal, especially if you get year 2, his cap hit goes down a couple $1 million even after that. So honestly, it's boom or bust at this point. He's either going to boom or he's going to bust, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, originally, Colonel, when I saw the move come through and how much was given, and the fact that they swapped second rounders as well, and then taking in the salary and the draft picks, I definitely thought it was a panic move. But that being said, I took a step back, I waited a little bit, and I said on Twitter earlier today, I view Carson Wentz as a poor man's Matt Stafford. And what I mean by that is he's kind of reckless with the football at times, but he's a gunslinger. He stretches the field. He can throw 60 to 70-yard bombs. And so looking at this free agent class of quarterbacks and rookie class of quarterbacks, was there a rookie that had a strong arm that could play right away? No. Was there free agents that were there that had strong arms that could play right away? No, except for Carson Wentz, with free agents speaking. And the other guys were good passers, but they're not proven passers. So I can understand why they saw this and said, look, we have to make this move. This is the best guy available. He can start week 1. This stretches the offense. This does what we need to do with our wide receivers here. And then another team started calling. Like, that's my biggest gripe, Colonel, is why the price tag was so much. But we're hearing rumors that the Steelers were also interested. So Washington had to outdo them. They had to outbid them. And that would make me feel a lot better. But they're not going to say anything until next week on Wednesday, because that's when the new league starts, and that's when they can actually execute the trade and then comment on it. They can't say anything at the moment, but I will say that $28 million, I wonder if there was an agreement in place before the trade was executed to say that Carson was going to take a pay cut, that he was going to restructure his contract, because it is basically a one-year deal. Washington can get out of it with zero dead cap space after next season, and so Carson would like to have a home rather than starting for 3 different teams in 3 years, right? So he would want a longer-term deal, and so that would make sense, and it makes sense for both parties, in my opinion. So I think that money is going to go down. We're going to have a little bit more money to deal with in free agency, but I still say we got to re-sign Terry before we spend any money in free agency.
And to your point, honestly, you're not going to give up draft picks like that if it's only a 1-year rental. So I think in their minds, it's going to be at least a 2-year thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they get a guy in the draft next year and they can kind of move on after year 2.
That was my one argument to somebody yesterday, basically saying, like, I would never mortgage multi-year draft picks or capital just for a 1-year rental. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, of course, the reason it felt so disappointing is, like, if you really look at it, it's not that bad. I mean, like I said a couple weeks ago, like after the big 3, like Rodgers, Watson, Wilson, at third Jameis in there just because I like Jameis, but I would take Wentz over Trubisky and over Jimmy G. And I mean, it just, the reason it seems so disappointing is because it's like you go from Russell Wilson and then you think that we're going to move on to maybe Deshaun Watson, then you see Carson Wentz and you're just like, that's the big name. That's what it is. But Carson Wentz is not a bad quarterback. I don't, like, I understand he has had some tough seasons. 2020 was horrendous. But other than that, he's been pretty good over the last few years. He was even good last year. I know a lot of people didn't want to talk about that, but he was very good for the Colts. A lot of the Colts players are upset to see him go. And I really think Carson Wentz, at his best, Carson Wentz is a very good quarterback in the NFL. And if he can get there, great, then this trade is completely worth it. If not, if let's say he gets injured or he just completely busts this season, then you can move on. You can move on to a quarterback class that's actually good in 2023. Or if you take a rookie, you have him sit behind Wentz for a little while, and then they just get more season because no quarterback's ready to come in and start anyway. So I like it. And I think the upside, like you said, it's boom or bust. And I really think that Carson Wentz has the ability to be good. This is his last chance really to be a starter in the NFL. And we know what kind of skill set he has. And it's, no matter how you slice it, it's the best quarterback Terry McLaurin's played with so far in his NFL career. And I'm excited for him, man. He's got all the tools. It's going to be, can he do it?
Yep. And now our next question is going to go to the Discord chat server, our guy, Mr. Scott Hartley. Oi! And his question is... Oi! And his question is, and I lost it, of course. But what is your biggest concerns? What are your biggest concerns do you have after trading for Wentz? And what is the biggest positive about the trade? Reed.
The biggest concern, obviously, the injury situation. And like you said, if this was a panic move, could they have waited a little longer, maybe found out what happened with Deshaun Watson? But I think, obviously, if they made this move, I think the Deshaun Watson talk was there. Something's going on with him. But the best thing that could happen is you hit with Carson Wentz and you get a solid quarterback who has all of the tools going forward. I mean, this isn't rare for quarterbacks to go to a team after kind of falling out with other teams. Like you look at Ryan Tannehill, he goes and completely resurrects his career. I mean, it happened in the past with Matt Hasselbeck. It happens. I mean, so, hey, it could be a good thing. We could have a good quarterback, or worst comes to worst, we're competitive this season and we move on and we actually go to a quarterback class that has some actual talent next year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about with Carson is his ability to extend plays and stuff. Because a lot of the times what happens, like with Philly, when he was there in Philly, everyone thought their offensive line stunk. He leaves, their offensive line takes a huge step forward, right? The Colts, he goes into it, everyone says is the top 5 offensive line. He gets sacked quite a bit last season. Not as much as
They did have a lot of injuries, though.
They did. But I'm only concerned that his ability to keep the ball in his hands is going to make the offensive line look worse. And that is my biggest concern. But the biggest positive is his ability to stretch the field. Because Terry McLaurin, we heard Logan Paulson talk about this on Monday, Terry excels at deep field. So you're looking at 70 yards below to like 30. That's where Terry balls out. This dude, Carson Wentz, is going to be the best deep field quarterback he's ever played with in his career, either in college or the pros. He's going to look great. And then on top of that, Dyami Brown as well. We saw Dyami Brown last season, at the end of the season, have pretty good catches deep downfield, and he's going to look fantastic with Carson as well. So I'm really excited to see the field stretch, because we've been used to it by this point with Alex Smith and then with Taylor Heineke. The check down Charlies all day long, just getting the ball out of your hands quickly to be able to move the chains. And J.D. McKissic obviously absorbed a lot of those catches, but now it's going to be the complete opposite with that. Carson Wentz is rarely going to hit his check downs, and he's going to be going deep a whole lot. What do you think, Hall? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll say it after you go.
Well, my biggest concern would be kind of what you just said, honestly, where his biggest kind of misstep as a QB right now is he misses the layups, as in he misses the checkdowns. He misses those easy, quick outs, those easy, quick slants, kind of those easy passes that should be 5-6 yard gains to set up second and short, or those third and short kind of plays to kind of keep the chains moving on those important like drives at important times in the game, whether it's 2-minute warning, 4 minutes left in the quarter, something like that. So that's my biggest concern is he going to be able to keep the chains moving, or is it going to be pretty much a big play or bust offense? I want to be a methodical, intermediate, short, and downfield offense. I don't want to just be chuck it deep to Terry McLaurin YOLO style. So that's my biggest.
Your mic went out, Hall. Your mic went out. It's fine. Now,
then, well, real fast. Pat McAfee talked about Carson Wentz because, of course, he's a huge Colts guy. And you kind of heard that we saw this with Carson Wentz with the Eagles, and we heard about it from their fans. Carson Wentz is such an exciting player, and he will get your blood going. Because he's a never say die. He tries his hardest every play. He's always trying to keep plays alive, and he gets frustrating, but he also will deliver some amazing plays. So, Washington fans, at least it'll be fun this season,
Yeah, and there's a bunch of players, at least 3 that have come out and said, like, some sort of basically saying this blows that Carson's leaving. And
Jonathan Taylor was pissed about it.
The consensus around the league is that Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, did not like Carson and wanted him gone. Yeah. It didn't matter what Frank Reich, the head coach, wanted. It didn't matter what Chris Ballard, the GM, wanted. He wanted Carson gone. And so that I know everyone keeps talking about his leadership and everything, but I'm telling you, I think it's completely different. I think Irsay is pulling a lot of the strings here. But, Hall, let me stay with you. The next question from Scott. How would you approach the draft now at number 11 and in the second round at pick 47?
Yeah, well, my obvious answer is going to be wide receiver. You definitely got to go with Garrett Wilson, maybe Treylon Burks if he's still there at 11, or maybe a Drake London at 11, just because he's a big body guy that can play the outside, great red zone target. Definitely could work well with Carson Wentz as far as that downfield stuff and those 50-50 balls. So that would be my first round pick. And then at 47, I would go. That's a tough one. I'd probably go either between whatever you have your best player available as, whether it's between linebacker and safety. So whatever you have that position ranked higher as, that player, I would go with that. My guess would be they're probably going to try to attack linebacker in free agency. So I'll say with my second round pick, I would go with a guy like Nick Cross that we just talked about out of Maryland. I think he could definitely come in, second round pick, and contribute in week 1 in this defense.
Yeah, well, the Carson Wentz trade does change a lot with the number 11th overall. I do think that needs to be for a playmaker to add some more depth to this offense and make it more intriguing, to make it more explosive, just in case Carson does get injured and Taylor has to come in. That would make a lot of sense to be able to make Taylor's job a lot easier, so he doesn't have to lean on J.D. McKissic if he were to come in the game. But in the second round, Scott, I'm hitting that with quarterback. If Desmond Ritter is there, you pull the trigger. I wholeheartedly agree with Ryan that Desmond Ritter matches up with Carson Wentz the most if you're going to do comparisons just based on body style. I mean, Carson is 6'5", 237 pounds. So it makes a lot of sense. He's only 29 years old, too. So the guy is not too bad. But I would love Desmond Ritter in that aspect because let's say Carson does get injured. I know I talked a lot of crap a couple weeks ago about this rookie class, and I said Taylor was better. But I'll tell you right now, if halfway through the year, let's say by game 6, Carson gets injured, I think Desmond Ritter would beat out Taylor for that to come in off the bench. And I think Desmond Ritter would not let go of that job from that point. What do you think, Reed?
I think that with Carson with that quarterback in place, you build this team up and you try to succeed as best you can. And if Carson doesn't work out, then you're looking at a quarterback later on down the road. But I'm going to go with, you got to go either wide receiver, safety, or linebacker in the first 2 rounds. Linebacker, you can't go round 1. But let's say Kyle Hamilton falls to pick 11. You're taking a Kyle Hamilton there. And then you can go, it's a deep wide receiver class. You can take a Christian Watson, somebody in round 2, George Pickens, or let's be honest, you do a Drake London or Garrett Wilson in round 1. Then in round 2, you take the best safety or linebacker that is available and just build your team.
And to keep it with you, our next question is from the Discord chat server. Our guy Andy Burrows in the UK. Oi, what's there more of in the world, wheels or doors?
All right, okay. This isn't even close, guys. The answer is wheels, and here's the answer. I had to write all of this down real fast. I'm gonna speed through it, but all right. So if you think about it, all right, lawn equipment, right? Lawn equipment has a bunch of wheels with no doors, lawn mowers, wheelbarrows. You got forklifts. Think about all the toys in the world, from toy cars to wagons to wind-up toys that shoot forward with mini wheels on them. All the luggage with at least 2 to 4 wheels. Office buildings have a lot of doors, yeah, right? Well, guess what? There's more wheels than doors when you take into account at least 4 wheels per office chair. Motorcycles have 2 wheels, no doors. 18-wheelers wheel-to-door ratio must be nuts. All bicycles, tricycles, unicycles in the world with no doors. Bikes with training wheels. Even on one garage door, there's at least 2 wheel mechanisms. Cars might have 6 doors, right? If you count the trunk and the glove box. Wheels have 4 on the ground, a steering wheel, a spare tire, the wheels that move, make the seat go forward and back, wheel mechanisms under the hood, brake rotors. You think about shopping carts, think about all the conveyor belts in the world with dozens of wheels turning them. Lego wheels, there's so many Legos in the world. Even the automatic doors in grocery stores have more wheels than that one single door. Skateboards, rollerblades, dollies, carts, rolling gates. Even a dishwasher has wheels in it. Same with the drawers in the kitchen, drawers in the fridge. It has wheels.
I was going to argue here, but I think Reed takes it, dude. I mean, the guy is obviously very invested.
I'm very passionate about this. It's wheels.
I would say that every wheel would, a lot of wheels would require a door to be able to be used, but not every door needs a wheel. That's why I would consider doors more, but you just slammed it. You just hit it out of the park there, Reed. So I'm not even going to argue with you. But that was such a great question by Andy. I mean, Hall, do you want to comment on it? Because I'm not going to say anything.
I mean, I'm in your boat. I was going to try to argue it and say, you got to think about, like, houses have doors and then, like, the cupboard doors.
Yeah.
Like, beds have doors on them now. Like, there's so many doors. But, I mean, look, Reed just laid it out all out on the line. I mean, clearly there's more wheels. And him being the lead wheel expert of this trio, I'm going to have to say I'm going to go with Reed. There's probably more wheels.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the last question, or the second to last question from the Discord chat server from Big Tony.
Real fast. When I was doing that door was open. I thought Lindsay needed me, so I just like hit pause and went out there. And I was like, "What'd you need?" She was like, "Nothing. I was just in shock. I thought you had some form of autism or something, rattling off all these wheels."
Going off about wheels. The question from Tony Shivers, one of our biggest contributors to this show. Thank you, Tony. If McKissick doesn't return to the Commanders, how would you replace his role in the offense, Hall?
Well, you would hope that there's 2 routes you could take with that. Obviously, look, I love J.D. McKissick. I was actually thinking about this because they were like talking about this on Gray and Danny before I got out of my car coming from work. They were saying like who's like out of the people left, J.D. McKissick, blah blah blah, and I started thinking about it that obviously J.D. McKissick is really essential to this offense last year, to the past 2 years, third down back, pass blocking, et cetera, et cetera. But if you really like sit back and look at it, yes, he's essential, but outside of Terry McLaurin, especially last year, outside of Terry, especially when Logan went down, there was really no other weapon. So you would expect a huge drop off from the offense when your number two pretty much weapon goes down in the offense. So I say all that to say this. You can go two routes with this. You can kind of replace his production and him with hopefully Curtis Samuel comes back healthy 100%, and he can be pretty much a better, more dynamic J.D. McKissic. Or you go another veteran route, kind of like one of those sneaky finds in free agency, maybe a Duke Johnson, maybe a Chase Edmonds might demand like a mid-tier kind of like low-level contract. So you can do, like I said, two routes: Curtis Samuel or maybe another bargain bin kind of great find by the front office in free agency.
Yeah, number one for me in replacing J.D. McKissic is not his catching of the football, it's his pass blocking ability. So if you are going to be bringing somebody in here to replace J.D., you better make sure they can pass block very well, because J.D. McKissic almost killed the guy last season. I watched what he did to the Atlanta Falcons DB. That was disgusting. But he's one of the best in the league at that. And then obviously he's getting a lot of choices from the market, but if J.D. McKissic does not return back here, I think one guy, Tariq Cohen, obviously just got released by the Bears. He's coming back from his injury. Obviously, Charles Leno knows him very, very well. So I would like to see maybe Tariq Cohen coming in here, and because he's not somebody you can lean on, but it's somebody that could do what J.D. McKissic did in the passing game. And then off of that, Hall kind of briefly talked about it, Curtis Samuel being that kind of gadget Deebo Samuel type of wide receiver you can use as a running back in some situations as a mismatch in that aspect. So there's other ways that they can replicate J.D. McKissic, but it's going to be very, very hard to do that given the fact that he catches the football, but he's also one hell of a pass blocker. Not many pass catching backs do that.
Right. Yeah. If we have to replace JD, obviously the top of your list would have to be Chase Edmonds. I mean, you just look at what he's done. If he can stay healthy,
I was going to say that, but y'all.
Right. Chase Edmonds, fantastic. I was also going to mention Tariq Cohen because he's a human joystick. He had so much potential at one point and he ended up getting released. But if not, you have to look towards the draft. Yeah, you have to find out if you can get like a Kyron Williams or somebody like that. Is it worth it? Do you have other holes to fill, or do you think that they can come in and compete? Because those are some big shoes to fill. Like you said, it's more than just pass catching. It's it's pass blocking. He was so valuable as an outlet, so it'd be huge.
Yes, it would. And now, Sergio Martin, I'm sorry, brother. I know that we already talked about the Zach Ertz thing, but I agree with you. Why all the noise about signing Zach Ertz? We get it. We're right there with you. The last question in the Discord chat server is from our guy Jeff Miles, guest of ours.
There he is.
Why aren't we being mentioned with all these linebackers hitting the market? Jordan Hicks, Bobby Wagner. He said, I mean, even Dallas is coming in the mix for Wagner when they already have 3 solid linebackers. Them with Wagner is too scary. What are we doing? Are we even giving an effort, Reed?
I think it's no secret that Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera know linebacker well. They know how important it is. I'm sure that they're trying to do something. They recognize that's a need. The only thing is now, like I said, I think that with the Carson Wentz accusation, we knew that no matter what, this front office knew that getting a quarterback was going to take a big portion of that cap space. It was going to knock it down. So we weren't really working with as much cap space as most people thought, unless we drafted a rookie. So I think that they are going to have to make some moves. Maybe they will bring in somebody like a Jordan Hicks. Unfortunately, as much as I want them to sign Bobby Wagner, I don't think that they're going to be willing to pay that much. And it is what it is, but they could look to the draft. But I agree that I do think that they need to bring a veteran in here that knows football. Bobby Wagner would be perfect. Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb with their natural ability. Like, it sucks. But let's just pray Dallas doesn't get him.
Yeah, let's just pray Dallas doesn't get him. All right, now let's move on to our Twitter comments and our questions. This one was submitted by Kim Parkhurst. Thank you, Kim. Should one of the 2 top quarterbacks drop to us? Should we pick it up at 11 or trade for more picks? Reed.
Oh, I'm not about going quarterback right now. I mean, I don't think that Malik Willis will fall. You got Seattle in front of us. I think that they like somebody. Kenny Pickett, it's interesting, but I really think right now you just got to build the team up as best you can. I've tried to convince myself about this quarterback class for the last 3 months, and I did a decent job of it. But now that I can kind of step back and be like, all right, our hands aren't tied. We don't have to take a quarterback round 1. I just think we have too many other holes. We filled quarterback. Let's build this team up a little bit. And when there's actual good quarterbacks next year, who knows?
Yeah, I definitely think that trading back is the best case scenario if the 2 best quarterbacks are still available, because there is going to be some quarterback needy teams that aren't able to get one of these guys. I really hope Deshaun Watson does not follow Brian Flores to Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh could be one of the quarterback teams that wants to trade up for Malik Willis if he's there at 11, for example.
You stole my point.
And the fact being is that before the Carson Wentz trade, I thought Washington needed to trade back to get more picks anyway. But the fact is, they only have a 1,
Now it's-
2, a 4, a 6, and then 2 7s. So there's going to be a lot of depth there that you're going to be missing. So I would
You
love
can
to
still
be able to
get a
trade
good
back.
receiver if you trade
Yeah.
back. There's still good receivers available.
And there's plenty of players if you trade back that would make Devin Lloyd, Nakobe Dean actually okay to make. Or if you want to trade back for one of those quarterbacks that you liked in the second round, that way you get the 5th-year option. That would make a lot more sense too. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I was gonna say the only way you draft a quarterback is if Malik Willis is somehow still there at 11, and even then, you're probably working the phones, calling Pittsburgh, calling whoever else behind you to try to see like, hey, you want to move up? What are you gonna offer? Maybe recoup that 2nd round pick we're gonna not have next year. Maybe recoup that in a trade back. But with that being said, I don't want them to trade back. I know we need more draft picks. I know we need to recoup some more picks, but I want a stud playmaker on offense in the top 15. Please, can we please do that, please?
Right?
I think
Please.
I think Jameson Williams would still be there if you were to trade
And
back.
I would,
I think
would
if you
love that.
Yeah.
I think if you trade back James, I think that you'd still have a good chance at getting Treylon Burks too. I don't think Treylon Burks will
Well,
go
see,
11.
look, I thought Treylon Burks was a perfect fit for this offense with
He is.
looking at Taylor as the
Right.
quarterback. With Carson at the quarterback, he is a deep field kind of thrower of the football. And Jameson Williams, his
Jameson
burst
Williams is perfect
out of his
Yeah.
breaks, I mean, he is the perfect deep field type of
Yeah.
wide
Oh,
receiver.
yeah.
Combined with Terry McLaurin, you are deadly in that breath. And that's why I would absolutely
I just
love
think
it.
if you look at Carson Wentz, I mean, he had Alshon Jeffrey, he had Michael Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does want one of those bigger Drake London, maybe,
Yeah.
or even Traylon's big. So,
Yep.
but any of those guys, I think you would be welcomed here with open arms.
Yeah, I think Alec Pierce is another name that comes to mind when you're talking about
Yes,
big
he
wide
is.
receivers
Yeah,
like
he
him.
is. Yeah, he is, and he's white.
Yeah,
Often does
I did
not
not.
happen.
I did not think he was white. Now,
Yeah,
the next question that we have is from our guy, Miss Mike Puckett. He wants to know: Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Ooh,
LOTR for life.
Yeah, dude, it's Lord of the Rings. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, there's
There's-
just no contest.
They stole it from us. Sneaky little hobbitses. Lying, tricksy foes. Where would you be without me?
Lord of the Rings. I don't even have an answer for the nerd that says Harry Potter. No, I get Harry Potter.
There
love, but
can
Lord-
be
Oh,
only
yeah,
one.
there can be only one.
I legit thought that was Schmiegel.
Dude,
Smeagol.
that's too creepy, bro. You have to stop that, man. Apologies to Wahoo Dad. I know
Oh, man,
you had a
that's
question.
crazy.
Do we take best player available or quarterback at 11? I think we've already answered that by now, so I'm sorry, dude. There's just a lot of questions here I'm trying to sift through. But the next question from Wahoo Dad is, should we draft Matt Araiza with Tress Way getting older? As much as we all love Tress, Araiza is a great talent. Reed.
I like Areza. It was fun to watch at the combine, man. Watching a punter run a 4.7, was it?
Yeah.
The only thing is that punters can play so long, and Tress has been so good. I would just keep. I'm not opposed to taking a kicker in the late rounds. If Mevis or Cade York is there, kicker's been hard on us. I mean, people forget that because Sly came in and did well, but Sly hasn't been the guy anywhere he's been either. So you never have too much. Bring in some competition. Maybe one of these kickers hits if you're getting them in the 7th as an undrafted free agent. But punter, no, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Tress is going to retire a Washington Commander, and I hope that is the case. He's as consistent as taxes from the punting standpoint, but I think you're right, Reed. If you're going to go through the special teams in the draft at all, I definitely think kicker is where you're going to be headed at. And obviously, they traded up for a long snapper last year, so obviously I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that they would use a draft pick on a kicker this year. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, you can always go the undrafted free agent route when you're trying to find a punter. But like you said, I would hope, and I'm pretty sure Tress is going to remain a Washington Commander till he retires. And at the end of the day, I know it was a necessity. We needed a long snapper. Don't draft special teams people. Draft offensive and defensive players, please.
Especially,
That's
I
all I
love
gotta say.
Cheeseman.
Nate
He's
Kaiser
actually-
is not going to like that.
I love cheese. I love
Yeah,
cheese.
he's done very well. I mean,
Come on,
As we
cut
know.
the cheese, guys.
but at the same time, like he wasn't even the number one long snapper on our board, and it's like, all right, he wasn't gonna get picked. You could have waited for that one, but do you?
I don't know why everyone decided today was the day for like these funny questions.
They
But this-
got good questions.
Yeah, this one's from Hog Farmer Keith. if we lived in Roman times, would the three of you be my main swordsmen and swear an oath to always protect and fight for your lord, King Keith?
Who are you, JP Finley?
And then Martin Collison commented on it and said, you are mixing up your Saxon and Roman eras.
I would fight for
I
that.
don't even know what
Keith.
that means.
Yeah. Tips the fedora violently. I would fight for you, milady. I would be thou gesture. And then I would never question your Washington football knowledge. You knew that contract.
Oh, I want to know what does Reed do better? Is the Canadian South Park accent or the
Yeah.
Schmiegel? Reed, what is your now? This one is from Emmanuel Chaguba on Twitter. Our guy. Who is your top free agent target, Reed?
Oh, I mean, that's tough because it changed. It used to, for sure, like I was going to go like a Jameis if we didn't get one of these quarterbacks or a wide receiver but now it's almost has to be a linebacker or one of the safeties that's available. Maybe a Marcus Williams. The only thing is it's so tough now because the cap space issue. Like I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I got to take completely reassess my free agency attack plan and find out who's out there that we can still grab. I haven't looked at it really the last couple of days because
For me, Manny, number one is Jordan Hicks, the linebacker from Arizona, had 118 tackles last season and 4 sacks, even with the fact that they drafted Zaven Collins and the dude from Clemson, Isaiah Simmons, a year before. Still very productive. I wanted us to trade for him in the midseason. If you listen to this pod, you heard me say that throughout the season multiple times to trade for Jordan Hicks. Now that he's available, I think that is their number one target. But the other one that I'm intrigued by as a free agent is Mike Daniels. I believe is his name, the right guard from the Bears. That's coming that's going to be available through free agency. I think
James
Daniels. I screwed it up. Sorry. I think that he could be an asset to this offense, given the fact that they're letting Sheriff walk, and I don't think that he would be too expensive, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think he'd do really well in this system. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I'm looking at the list now, and one name that kind of pops out to me is I know he's getting up there in age, but it would make sense because they love Alabama players. But I'm looking at a guy like Dante Hightower from New England. He's going to hit the market. He's kind of, like I said, he's kind of up there in age. He's kind of had some injury concerns over the past couple of years. I mean, obviously, my number one would be between Hicks and Wagner, but I think Wagner's going to be priced. We're going to be too outpriced by someone else for Wagner. And I definitely think that maybe even for Hicks as well, too. He's going to have some contenders trying to, like, get him on their team. But maybe a guy, like I said, Hightower, who can come in on a mid-level pricing, maybe a 1 or 2 year rental. He's obviously a great defensive player, played under Bill Belichick, smart guy. So I definitely think that he could be the defensive captain in the middle for this defense.
Great job. Now this next question is from our guy Michael Haas, former guest of this show. He says Washington will have around $12.5 million in cap space post the Landon Collins release. So, Hall, what happens if no Washington player restructures?
No other players restructure, then it's gonna be it's gonna be hard to bring guys back. I mean, they're gonna have to probably try to cut some guys, maybe release or trade some guys, and try to recoup some more money in free agency so they can kind of come out. And like I said, I don't think they might be big players for maybe one kind of, I guess I'll call them not even a 5-star, 4-star kind of free agent, but I definitely think it's going to be one of those quiet free agency markets or free agency periods where we kind of go bargain shopping again, maybe like Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick, somewhere like that, and try to get guys for the cheap and get maximum production.
Yeah, and then so Reed, this question to you because Michael has one for each of us, obviously,
He's
like
the
he
GOAT.
did, like
He's
he did
the
last
greatest.
time. With quarterback likely out at 11, and Ron's glowing endorsement of the potential rookies in the wide receiver core. Where do they get the wide receiver? Either the draft or free agency? Or
I think you got to go in the draft. That's just me. I mean, I get you want somebody established, but and it used to be rookie wide receivers didn't play well. It took them a little bit to kind of catch on. But if you look at the past couple seasons, that's not really the case anymore. I mean, these guys are talented. You know how to get the ball. It's a passing league. And plus, if we're just being honest, how often do top tier free agents ever work out? They never really do. It seems like that rarely happens, and that's why I think you're going to kind of see what we've seen, and that's kind of mid-level bargain bin guys, and it's worked out for us so far, so I think it'll be all right, and we'll draft well. I think they got to go with best receiver in the draft. I like DJ Chark. I do. You
He's
know,
coming off an injury.
He's
though,
a,
so I
he's a
don't know,
nice
but-
guy. Yeah, no, I mean he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. And then his
That's what I
question,
meant. He's a nice guy.
and then
Yeah.
Michael's question to me: what positions will Washington address via free agency? Definitely think middle linebacker will be one, but the other, like I just said, is right guard. I think what a troll job that would be for Washington to be able to bring a guard out of here that's cheaper than Brandon Sheriff through free agency, and then maybe that guard excels really well and they do well, and that would be the ultimate troll job. So I definitely think those are the two positions they could do in free agency without a doubt. Now our next question is from Paul Murphy. What current players will benefit most from Commander Carson's arrival, and which players will improve his game in return? He's a strong arm talent, that is true. So, Hall,
Yeah.
what about? Let's go to you first. Which current players will benefit the most?
Well, obviously it's gonna be Terry. Definitely, hopefully, Curtis Samuel comes back. All the wide receivers. I'm not gonna go down the list. Diami, Curtis, and
Cardos.
Terry are gonna hopefully benefit the most. That's honestly 3 different levels of receiver. You can kind of have Curtis on the underneath kind of stuff, short yardage, move the chains. Diami Brown can kind of work the deep stuff, the deep post, the go routes, and then you got Terry kind of working the deep digs, the posts, as well as the deep shots. So hopefully this wide receiver core will benefit the most with also another added weapon through the draft.
Which current player will benefit the most? I think Antonio Gibson. This is the first time in Antonio Gibson's career that he has a quarterback with a strong arm. And so what has to happen is defenses have to respect that. You're going to be taking defenders out of the box.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
Antonio Gibson's going to be seeing a lot less 8-man fronts and stuff like that. He's going to have a lot more space to work with. I think Antonio Gibson will really, really benefit from Carson Wentz.
Yeah, both of you guys are both right. But I'll go with the other route. I'm going to go with Logan Thomas. I mean, you look at the relationship Carson Wentz has had with his tight ends his entire career. I mean, look over in Philly, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, and then last year with the Colts, Mo Alley Cox, and then Jack Doyle, some of these guys. I mean, he likes his tight end, so it'll only really help Logan Thomas and John Bates.
Yeah, and then Ryan.
Every time I hear Mo Alley Cox, I just picture damn Mo Alley Cox.
Our buddy Dan, dude. Ryan, you're the man. I know you had submitted a question. What are your thoughts on our first 2 picks? He thinks that they, with Wentz now in D.C., the smart move would be to draft a wide receiver at 11 and then a quarterback if there's one in the second round. And I think we all wholeheartedly agree to an extent. Now, the last question that we have for this episode from Tony Franchise. Should we cut Matt Ioannidis and re-sign Tim Settle? This is a topic of discussion right now because a lot has been said about Matt Ioannidis. There's rumors that he was going to be moved or released by Washington, and Settle obviously is supposed to be a free agent. And so Washington fans are talking about, well, should they re-sign Settle and let go of Matt Ioannidis? What do you think, Hall?
Ooh, it's tough. Love both these guys. Honestly, I think Tim Settle is going to get a pretty nice chunk of change coming off the free agency market. Again, there might be another guy that kind of gets outpriced due to our cap situation right now. So I would probably keep Matt Ioannidis and then probably just restock through the draft like they've been doing for the past couple of years. Get maybe like a 4th or 5th. Well, we don't have a 5th round guy. Maybe get like a 4th or 6th round guy and kind of I guess bring him up through the ranks and kind of have him stashed away. Let him have the Tim Settle role where he gets kind of worked in throughout the rotation. And yeah, you just got to keep replenishing through the draft. That's the name of the game, honestly.
Yeah, look, for me personally, I've always thought that Duran would be moved. Not because I don't think Duran is a good player. He's a fantastic player. He's very, very good. He's one of the best in the league. But when you look at the lineup of guys, Jonathan Allen obviously just re-signed an extension. I don't think he's going anywhere. You got Duran, Matt Ioannidis, Tim Settle, who possibly is leaving. David Bada is another name there. What was garner the most reaction from other teams? And I think it's Duran Payne at this point. And that's why I would rather get something in return when we have these plethora of defensive tackles rather than just cutting a guy and getting nothing in return and having Matt leave in 2 years when we're not going to re-sign him. And then Tim Settle's already with another team re-signing in free agency. So now you only have John and Duran. And there's no guarantee that they'll both be here in the future, right? So my whole thing is you might as well get the best bang for your buck at the moment. I think Duran Payne would be able to get you some high quality picks or players, whatever have you, and to be able to supplement your team a little bit more than just by straight up cutting Matt Ioannidis and then re-signing Tim Settle. But without a doubt, I think that Tim Settle should stay here. I think that's when you look at that kind of situation, you're looking at somebody who doesn't get a lot of playing time, but every time he does, he excels. He does a lot with it, and he is cheaper than what Daron Payne would garner based off the first-round designation and other attention. So I think that would be the smarter asset to do. Get the guy who's very productive and Tim Settle younger and is cheaper rather than re-signing the big money guy and then not getting anything in return for Tim Settle.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, obviously trading I think that would be ideal. You're right. You would definitely get more for Duran than anybody. But yeah, I think you just don't want too much money kind of tied up at that position right now. So it sucks. But if you're planning on re-signing Daron Payne, you want to keep Payne and Allen together, then yeah, I think unfortunately, if Matt Ioannidis, who by the way, I love the guy, but he hasn't produced in 2 years. I know it's because of injury, but I mean, if he won't take a pay cut, then unfortunately he might be the guy that goes. And I'm all right. Unfortunately, I'm okay with that because even though I love him, because if we can bring back Tim Settle and that can kind of be our 3 deep rotation right there, then it is what it is. It'll be cheaper, save us some money.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing about the Carson Wentz trade I just want to include in here, because I know it looked really bad with having the 3rd round pick and then possibly next year's 2nd round pick or 3rd round pick. We also have to look at it with Brandon Sheriff leaving in free agency. As long as Washington aren't big bidders in free agency, they don't get big name players, they're going to have a 3rd round comp pick, right? And so that would kind of ease out and balance out the draft that they traded for Carson Wentz. So I think that makes me feel a little bit better about the trade, knowing that they could have a comp pick sitting there. But our next question is from my guy Aki G. It's the last one of the day. How do you feel about this trade, and what do you think Carson brings to this year's team, Reed?
So like I said, if you're getting top-notch Carson Wentz, you're getting a good quarterback. He's got a strong arm. He's mobile. He can keep plays alive, and he is a competitor. I think that's really what Ron likes the most about him is that this guy, he gives, I mean, for Christ's sake, the guy sprained both of his ankles on one play because he tries too hard. Like, I mean, it is what it is. Yes, his injury concerns, that's the worst thing, but I really think you can get a good quarterback with a strong arm and keep these receivers happy. And you could honestly win you some games. People forget, man. Like I know I've said it before, but Carson Wentz, when he was at his best, Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate. He was fantastic. He always killed us. And so I think with your best, if he can re-emerge, if he can redo his career, you're getting a hell of a quarterback. And if you can get a quarterback like that, and this is all you gave up, then you're in a good position.
Yeah, like from the get-go, I didn't like it. My first tweet was no when seeing they traded for Carson, just because like on your mind, you had Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, these really good quarterbacks on your mind. It's not like Carson Wentz isn't good, obviously, but he's not up to par with them, right? But after I let it settle a little bit, the schematic fit is what excites me. And the biggest issue that I had with it all was the contract situation. It kind of looked like we got screwed over a little bit because it seemed like we overpaid, that we panicked. But looking at it in a different way, I can understand why they would do that. I can understand why they'd go out and get the gunslinger, because it's the first time that Terry or this offense is going to have that in a while since
they
Haskins.
tried to get They tried to get a gunslinger last year and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So
right. And Matt Stafford, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you know that they do like that kind of quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
I think he's going to bring to this year's offense and this year's team, where he's going to bring what we were supposed to get out of Ryan Fitzpatrick last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted Ryan Fitzpatrick to come in last year and kind of be that game manager, but push the ball down the field, take shots, get the ball to Terry as much as you can, right. Extend the play whenever need be, and like I said, push the ball down the field. And we all know Carson Wentz loves to push the ball down the field. He loves to try to extend plays. Like you said, he's beyond a try-hard. He's like an extra try-hard. So we're going to get like I said, it's going to be a roller coaster. We're going to get a lot of boom plays, a couple bust plays here and there. But at the end of the day, he's like you said, he averages 7 interceptions a year.
It's
I'll
weird.
take that any day. This is going to be hopefully this will be the most explosive offense we've had since probably Kirk was here 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah,
real fast. Go back, look at his career stats. It's so weird how many times he's thrown 7 interceptions in a season. I think it's all but 2.
Yes, it is. It's all but 2. It is. And so in his career, Carson Wentz, 85 games. His career record is 44-40-1. He averaged in his career 62.6 completion percentage, which is fantastic. That's the kind of number you want. Has thrown for over 20,000 yards, 140 touchdowns to 57 interceptions. Now, I know that we want to look at that and say that's a fantastic number, but we have to take in consideration he also had 66 fumbles. So that puts him at over 110 turnovers right there. So you're looking at a 140 to 110 touchdown to turnover ratio. So for every 3 touchdowns that Carson Wentz throws, he's going to have 2 turnovers. So when we look at Carson Wentz, you have to look at it in that mindset. Yes, he does stretch the field, but he is going to turn the ball over a heck of a whole lot. So you just got to take that with a grain of salt, but you're paying for the gunslinger. Just remember that, everybody.
Just remember a few years ago when it was like you would look back at that draft class and you're like, well, who would you rather have now after 2 seasons? Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, or Dak Prescott? It was always, well, Dak or Wentz. Like, it's not even a question. So.
Right. And I apologize about yelling. I'm sorry, my dogs were barking. I have to do it. I forgot to mute it this time.
Hasn't butchered them yet. They're next.
Yeah, not yet. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We'll be back on Monday with a fresh one for you with some more recap. Hopefully, we have some more news circling around this Washington Commanders team. And a couple
Free
of these
agency tampering period starts Monday, so we should.
Yeah, and actually it just got reported by Jacina Anderson that Deshaun Watson will not face criminal charges.
Oh, no.
Good luck in Pittsburgh, Deshaun. Good luck, man.
Fuck.
All right.
Why didn't you guys just wait?
Or Carolina.
All right, everybody. We'll see you guys on Monday. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
I'm Mike Wheels Reed, and I forgot about wheelchairs. Too.
I'm going to start calling you Wheels from now on. That's a
You
great
should.
nickname.
I
No,
thought you
you
were going to do the
should.
Smeagol voice, honestly.
Yeah. Well,
He
that
should've.
too.
He missed a great opportunity for it. All right,
my
everybody.
ring is Wheels. Oh, kind of looks similar too.
Yeah, that's true. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Make sure you comment on here. We want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your input. What do you think we should do at number 11? What we should do in the second round? What about free agency and Jordan Hicks, Bobby Wagner? Should we like Jeff Miles wants? Should we really go after these guys? Let me know in the comments section on YouTube. And also, please go and like and subscribe. And then give us a review on iTunes. We'd love to hear from you as well. All right, everybody. Oh, and special shout out to our guy, Ty Mack. He bought one of our Burgundy Zone shirts. He published it on the Twitter today, which is really, really cool of him. I appreciate
I'm
it.
watching you, Ty. I'm watching you.
One of the biggest supporters of the show. That's the man right there. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!